Hello my friends and welcome back to Player Display. So today I'm returning to a figure who I've wanted to go back to for a few months now, mainly because it's been quite the talking point and there have been a few questions surrounding it. So what I wanted to do today is show off the mods that I did for my, I believe it was DC Direct or DC Essentials, I can't quite remember, the Rorschach figure from the Watchmen movie. So as you can see here, things are very different. So I'm just going to go through all the various mods that I did pretty quickly, but the first thing you see is I did a wash throughout the figure. In fact, we'll go ahead and zoom in. You can see I did a little bit of blacks and grays, just pretty much did some dry brushing throughout all the soft goods, as well as the hat, the gloves, and the shoes. And pretty much what I did is after I did that dry brush, is I actually drenched the thing in water, and I continued to paint over the areas where I painted with a dry brush that had no paint on it whatsoever. So that allowed the paint to pretty much spread out, evenly disperse a little bit more, and get a little bit more crude and messy as it should be. Now he doesn't look too clean, like he definitely was not in the movies, so this makes him just a little bit more screen accurate, I think, and I really love the results. I didn't do as much on the back. As you can see, I mean, it's on the back, so it's not going to be that visible. Obviously, if you're a completionist and you want to do any mods for this particular figure, then you can go all the way there. But I also did some of that weathering work on the pants, not quite as much so because the color is already pretty dark. But as for the shoes, I went a little bit more crazy on there, so there we are, looking really good. Obviously, I did some mask stuff as well, but we'll get to that when we get to that. There's a lot of things to go through here. As for the gloves, that's another thing I wanted to talk about. I also gave those some weathering as well, so let's go ahead and swap some of these out. So I've got an open hand right here. You can see I've done a little bit of weathering, so let's go ahead and pop that out, do a little bit of swap. And as you'll notice, there's actually no sleeves under the main coat, at least no longer. So I'm going to go ahead and pop this on. There we are. And then we'll go ahead and replace this fist for a gripping hand. And of course, as you can expect, this is in anticipation for some extra accessories that we will be looking at that I have made. So there's our gripping hand. Getting a little bit more dirtied up. I don't think this guy ever bathes, ever, so I don't mind that he's really heavy-handed, no pun intended, with the weathering and the paints, so looks good by me, and there we are. So let's go ahead, and before we even look at accessories or anything else we've done to this figure, I did want to talk about how I removed some of the clothing, because I did actually go under the trench coat and remove the Joker shirt over here, and I also cut off the sleeves from the main vest. So there are 3 layers to this figure, or at least there were 3 initially, and I had to remove those. So very quickly, this is something I wanted to do, and it's something that someone else requested. I just wanted to show off how I remove the jacket, remove the garments, and then how I put it all back together. So let's go hop back into the past and see what I did. Alright, so here I am from the past, and today we are going to see if we can undo this jacket. I've done it once before, so that way I could remove the undercoat, which looks really nice, but it was definitely making him a little bit too poofy. So the reason why I want to go back in there is because he does have one undershirt left, and that is what gives him the collar that actually supports the scarf that he has, but that's really the only part that's visible, so why have the rest of the shirt? So effectively what I'm going to do is remove the sleeves of the undershirt, so that way the rest of the trench coat comes down a little bit more. It's not as poofy. First thing we need to do is untie this knot down here. Someone in the comment section of the initial review wanted to see how it could be undone then redone, so since I've done it before, I figure we'll go ahead and try it again. But anyways, here's the knot as it looks. Obviously the weathering is not on the default figure, but something I wanted to add, but I recommend getting yourself some tweezers. Just gotta study this up. I haven't done this in a while myself, but I'd imagine let me see here. And the cool thing is, after I record this video, I can just reverse engineer the footage, so that way I can undo it once again. You gotta get the tweezers, pull it down so it loosens the knot first, and then basically what we're gonna do is create something of a loop, like this. And then we should be able to remove the buckle, just like so. So basically what I need to remember to do after I remove this jacket is grab this metal portion, slip it back through on top of this extra bit over here, as you can see, and then just pull everything back together, and then it should be fine. But that's totally separate from the jacket, so I'm just going to leave this face up so I don't forget how to do that. And then we should be able to take the jacket off. There's a single true button that's actually holding everything together. Let's pop that off, and then I'm going to be a little off screen here. And then just pull off the jacket one sleeve at a time. And here we are. I will actually show you how the undershirt is removed because it is quite easy, so we're going to have to undo Rorschach, at least not the pants at least, so that's preferable. But you slide it right off. It doesn't interfere with the scarf at all, so you can leave that nice and tied. Just slot it right there. Let's go ahead and slot off that undershirt, and then here we are. So pretty much what I did, what I'm going to do here is what I did with that Cronin figure that we looked at oh so many months ago, and pretty much what I did there is I'm going to cut the sleeve off, and then I'm going to start at the pit right behind the seam line, as you see right there, and I'm going to cut it a little bit further towards the top. So got some little scissors here, just going to cut that away. There we go. Again, it's going to be invisible once you put it back on the figure. Basically, what you're doing is increasing mobility and making the soft goods a little bit less poofy, and just going to make things look a tad nicer. Like, not by a huge margin, but just enough so that way things look a little bit more slim and not as chubby, I guess, underneath. But anyways, there we go. Yeah, once you get to the seams, you got to put in a little bit more pressure in the scissors, but there we are. Now it's kind of like a vest. As for these sleeves, I might still be able to use them for something. Actually, one other thing you could do is, I notice he does have some cuffs down towards the bottom, so if you want to remove the sleeves for the sake of articulation, you could keep this vest part, get rid of the sleeve, but then you could cut off the cuff and then slot that back on. So I don't know, that's something I might do, and it'll be just a separate piece. I could glue it, but anyways, let's get this back on. It should be a lot easier to put back on with the sleeves off. Get the arms outstretched towards the back, and then we'll slide each arm into each hole. And then there we go. They've just got to tuck in the buttons back together, like so. Get the scarf out of the way. And then just button it back up one by one. It's a shame that these buttons are so nice because then they got to be hidden once you got the figure reassembled. But there we go. That should allow the figure to be a little bit more mobile. I even have a little excess cloth here, so I might even just go in right here and just cut that away like so. Literally just like that, and then it's not a big deal. Again, just cut away as much as you want. If you're afraid of like the seam lines fraying as you do it, or if something starts to come undone, you can just get some glue and take care of it. But again, it's under the main trench coat anyway, so it's just not going to matter, at least for me. But really up to you. That's why customizing exists, right? Now, let's go ahead and get the jacket back on, which is a little bit tough to do because there's kind of two layers to it. I suspect even if you want, you could probably cut away the olive portion. That might help to increase mobility a little bit as well. So basically, because there are two layers to this trench coat, you want to be sure that the arms go through both layers and then through the sleeves. So there's one, and then so you don't want it popping back out. Let's get the other arm, push that back, then gotta stretch it through. There we are. I think I got it. And button it back up. And then there we are. Heard that little click. And everything looks really good. But of course, the last thing we need to do is get that, I don't know what you'd call this, a little strap. Get this back around the figure. So again, we have that loop face up like we were talking about before. So just be careful that we don't lose that knot or whatever you'd like to call it. Get that buckle. Slot it back in to that little hole right there, pull it through. Might need some tweezers if you want. So pull that. It's kind of like a necktie now I think about it. But then once you get it through, pull it as tight or as loose as you want. Then hold on to both of these ends and pull up that main knot portion. And it should bring everything back together more or less. See right there. If you want to tighten it, just pull on those ends a little bit on their own. And there we go. It's back to where as it was. And if you don't like those straps popping up, then what I'm going to do here is just grab them both and kind of slide them back towards the back of it. And there we go. I'm pretty good with that. I just pull the whole jacket back down. And yeah, I was right. Removing those sleeves definitely helped him just a little bit. Now he looks a little bit more human and less like he's an alien in human clothing. So that's a lot better. But anyways, back to the main video. Alright, so that's pretty much it for that portion. I hope that was pretty useful to you. But anyways, as you can see here, as a result of removing the soft goods and also out of soaking the figure, it allowed the main trench coat to sit down a little bit more nicely. So a little broad at the shoulders, not a whole lot I could do about that. It's just the nature of the mold. Frankly, if the neck were a little bit taller, he might be proportionally a little bit more accurate, but it still worked out just fine. But anyways, let's go ahead and talk about the other accessories that I did for him. So the most obvious thing is he has a totally different mask. So this is 100% handmade, and I will actually tell you how I made that. In fact, I even made two, just because I thought the other one was a little too yellow, and again, I couldn't help but see a smile in there, so I wanted to sort of make my own. So let me first show you the masks that I failed on. I technically made four, but there were two that I made that just did not come out that great. So let me see if I can just fold these out a little bit. But yeah, here we are. They are not that great. The issue is the first thing I tried to do was, first of all the soft goods is made from old clothing that I had, like all the soft goods that I use pretty much. And what I tried doing was using like a brush marker almost. And the issue with that is that because it's water-based, oil-based, whatever, is it kept melting away, slip sliding around. Even if I tried to hold it back with some white marker, it didn't quite pan out. So I'm not using these. I'm solely keeping them just to show you a failure, that there are mistakes that can be made. And then before you get into the new ones, here is the original one for reference, kind of just a little beanbag. It's fine, it's just not my preference for what a Rorschach mask should be. As for the other two, I did. Now, here's the method as to how I made them. I don't have really any pictures or anything to show you. I might have some in my archives. If I do, I'll show them to you as we go. But basically what I did is I actually made some cardboard stencils, and this cardboard I actually made from some Bandai model kit boxes, which are very useful if you want to do any painting work. They're very good for holding pieces or just for making stencils like this. Pretty much I did, like, I pulled up some photo references, obviously. So I have one that's more comic accurate, then I have one that's more movie accurate, which is the one we have there. The best way to get them nice and symmetrical, even though they don't need to be perfect, I mean, it's a Rorschach mask, is I did half on one piece of cardboard, then I flipped it, and then I was able to trace out the other half, so that way it would be perfectly symmetrical. Then I cut it out with an X-Acto knife, then pretty much what I did is I got some squares of cloth and I laid the stencils on top, and then I covered the rest of the excess cloth with some other cardboard so they wouldn't get hit by the paint, and then pretty much I just sprayed it up with some Krylon matte black spray paint, and that allowed for some much better application of the black that's not going to stain, that's not going to warp with moisture or anything like that, especially since I was doing some water on the trench coat at the same time, which, against my credit, was my fault. That was not a smart thing to do. If you plan on using paint or water or anything on this figure, definitely do the masks separate until everything else is dry. I know it's exciting, but don't put the mask on while everything's drying, just to be on the safe side. But anyhow, let's go ahead and take a little look at these specific masks. So here's the movie one that I did, and the one difference between the final product and the stencil is you don't have those two white bits. I actually did those with a little bit of marker, and just a little bit's fine, so that worked out perfectly well, and it does indeed match some of the reference photos that I was looking at, and he looks a lot more screen accurate. So now let's go ahead and try swapping out this mask for the other one that I have, which is more comic accurate. So first, let's go ahead, remove the hat, and as you can see, I have some really weird looking corners going on. I pretty much did this with a new cloth glue, which I bought mainly to help me with capes and stuff like that, just because, again, I'm really crap when it comes to thread and needle. So this is just a nicer alternative for me. Not the most pretty looking, but I'm sure if you wanted to, you could probably trim out that corner and glue it right along there. It'll be a little bit more rounded, but again, when I have the hat on, it's not noticeable at all. So for me, I don't even care. But for you, there are other ways to go about it if you want a cleaner execution. But And we get it off, just pull it out of that seam, slides right off, and then there is our unmasked Rorschach, looking really good. As for this new mask, I never actually put this one on, so I don't know if this will be better or worse than the other. It could even just pop off completely, but anyways, just gotta slide this on very carefully, so it's a little bit tight. One thing you might want to do is use a little bit more cloth than you're picturing in your head, just to be sure there's enough to actually stretch over the head. Mine just barely meets requirements, are a little bit on the tighter side, so you might want to go a little bit bigger than I did. Just gotta take my time to keep it symmetrical while getting it over the nose and everything. Slide the jaw over a little bit. And it helps that also because it is so tight, I could see the nose popping through a little bit. So there we go. Again, it looks like he's about to rob a bank. It looks like a kind of just a knapsack or balaclava or something. But I mean, I guess that's pretty much what it is. But let's go ahead and grab the hat. I can pop that over those two corners. And boom, there we go. So that is our more comic accurate mask. And I do like how you have sort of the Spider-Man face popping through it, which I guess is a little more accurate in hindsight. So let's keep that one for the rest of the review as we look at two other bonus accessories I wanted to make. So the first thing I made is actually a cleaver from the iconic men go to prison, dogs get put down scene from the film and the comic as well. I pretty much made this out of some corner protectors for some cardboard boxes I had. They were made of a really nice plastic, so I pretty much just trimmed it up, sanded it down. I even drilled in some holes here, and then I even went as far as getting some Bandai sprues and inserting them in through the holes in the grips to make it a little bit more accurate. So now I got this gripping hand over here. Let's go ahead and pop out a little bit and pave our way down a little. And now we can get this right in the hand. Fits just fine. In hindsight, I wish I made the grip a little bit longer, but definitely works. I could even make a bloodied variant if I wanted to. Actually, another thing I might consider, I might not do it just because it's such a brief scene-specific thing to do, is I could make a third mask where when he does bring down the cleaver, if you know what I mean, his mask gets all crazy and berserk and wonky looking, so that's something that I might want to do. I'll have to think about that. It would be a matter of going on YouTube, pulling up some photo references and stuff like that, but anyways, that's a cleaver. And the second thing I made, and it's something I mentioned I really wanted to do in the actual review of this figure, let's get the open hand out, is making Rorschach's friggin' journal. So obviously it's not totally accurate to as it appeared in the film. It should have some imprinted like image, like the circular insignia of some sort. I think there were some lines going across. I'm not able to do that. I mean, I guess if I really wanted to, I could get a toothpick and try to etch it in, but I'm not going that far. It's just a little overkill. I also folded in some pieces of paper into this piece of wallet that I have here. It's engineered, actually all the pages are movable, but there's only one that it opened up to, and that is this page right here. I kind of have little 1985, just some chicken scratch. They also have the comedian's pin, which I thought would be really cool, so just seems like something he'd be writing up, but we can get the two hands in front of him. Could even make him a little pen or something, not that we ever saw one in the film itself, but I can get this in his two hands, have him looking over his notes, just like so. He has no neck articulation, so that makes it a little tough, but yeah, I mean, it definitely works out. So I believe that is everything that I've done. I've done nothing else with the other accessories, which are the grappling hook and the makeshift flamethrower. So I never got around to making flame effects or anything like that. Frankly, that's not the accessory I'd prefer. It would either be Rorschach's journal or the grappling hook, most likely. So I'm going to be sticking with those two and probably leaving the flamethrower off to the side. But anyways, I got some new masks, I got some new accessories, and overall he's just a lot more screen accurate, a lot more dirtied up. So that's pretty much all. So I hope you enjoyed this little custom showcase. If you enjoyed what you saw, then please, as per usual, be sure to like, comment,
and subscribe.
Or like a whole bunch of monsters are gonna invade your home, Scoop! Zoinks! Blah! Thank you guys very much. Take care, rock on, and I will see you all later. So obviously the first thing we need to do is remove... Oh my god, I almost died of my own throat.